Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's football show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Rough, Tam Cowan and Darren Jackson here with me on this Tuesday. Delighted to have your company. Don't forget, hit the follow button on our Facebook, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel and join the football family. Lots to talk about. Of course, the big story today that comes out of Aberdeen, Stephen Glass confirmed as the new manager of Aberdeen, something that we actually floated more than a few weeks ago, if you were listening closely. And over and above that, it looks as if the arrival of Scott Brown in a playing role, but as his assistant, looks imminent. Roughie, what's your take on that?
Yeah, as you said, we spoke about it, I think it was last week. I thought the Atlanta connection was a big indication in what was going to happen here. They know what he's been doing at Atlanta. They've seen him coming through the ranks. Obviously, another director is on the board at Aberdeen. So, I think everything was in his favour. By all accounts, he's doing a very, very good job. And I think that's the reason he's got it. They know who they're getting. They know what he's done and what he can do. So I think he was head and shoulders and head start above before most of the other candidates.
Yeah, this is what Stephen Glass had to say on his appointment as Aberdeen boss. It is a real honour to be named Aberdeen manager. Since my retirement from playing, I've been focused on becoming the best coach I can be, with the aim of being in a position to secure an opportunity such as this. Having worked with a number of esteemed managers and coaches in the game, my football education has been extensive, and my time with Atlanta United too has afforded me the chance to develop some exciting young players and hone my coaching skills. From the initial conversations I've had with the chairman and the board this week, I'm hugely excited about the plans that are being put in place for next season. Dons fans can be assured my drive for Aberdeen to compete fiercely and to win as well. So that's what he wants to do. Darren, it'll be a 12-month rolling contract at Aberdeen for Stephen Glass. Nobody really knows what he's going to offer as a coach. But I'll tell you, for one trophy in 26 years, he better have the bit between his teeth and have a little bit of Fergie about him. I think they need somebody who's going to fight and snarl and play attacking football and entertain the Dons fans.
Well, I think one advantage Peter has got is he's been there, he's played there. He knows the expectations of the Aberdeen fans. Now, I think sometimes they're too much to try and live up to Sir Alec's team. But Stephen is walking in the door. He doesn't have to wait till the fans get back in to find out what they're like. Stephen knows what he's like. I did a couple of deals for Stephen when he was at Hibs. Struan looked after him and asked me if I could look after him. So, good boy, good, honest professional, cultured left foot, honest as the day's long. And yes, he's obviously done well in his job at Atlanta. And the chairman thought he's the right candidate for the job. As I say, he goes in there with his eyes open, knows what the expectations are, and I hope for his sake he lives up to them. And as you say, he goes out. And this is no disrespect to Derek, but he goes out and gets players that are that the expectations of of an Aberdeen player, and goes and entertains.
I mean, it's an interesting one, Tam, because David Learmonth has just posted on our feed. It's a lazy appointment, in my opinion. We are now Atalanta's feeder club. I mean, you can see the connection with Atalanta already. So suddenly Aberdeen fans are looking and going, was it just one of those lazy appointments? Should they have been looking at someone with a bit more to offer?
Well, again, David, I'm sure, will be quite happy as a football fan. We're all very fickle to change his tune if Stephen Glass gets off to a flyer. I see it as being quite an intriguing appointment. He was a bit of a class act as a player. He obviously has a lot of time for Aberdeen. It appears as well, Peter, he is very, very ambitious. I heard a whisper that he's promising Aberdeen fans a goal by October. So good luck with that. That's something to look forward to. But I just think there's something. For folks saying it was a lazy appointment. The minute that Derek McInnes left, I don't think anybody would necessarily have had Stephen Glass in their top 5, because a lot of folk, if we're being absolutely honest, forgot that he was out there. You'd kind of forgotten all about Stephen Glass. So I don't think lazy. I think it's a bit unfair. We all know the connection with Dave Cormack, of course, but no, I think it's quite intriguing. And bring it on, see what happens. And I wish him all the best. Unless, of course, Peter, I hear his first TV interview and he's got an American twang.
Yes, absolutely. There's nothing
We don't want that.
We don't want that. We've already had Charlie Adam with a twang from Lytham St Anne's. The last thing we want is somebody. I don't know about you, Roughie. I did have, and I kid you not, and Tam knows this sort of thing that happens in our area, but I did have a mate of mine who went to America on holiday for 3 weeks, and he came back, and you would have thought he was John Wayne. I mean, you need to have a long, hard look at yourself. Kenny Dalglish was down in Liverpool, Roughie, for like 30 years, and you'd have thought he'd just left the middle of Glasgow.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing when you hear somebody that you've known for a long time and they go over to maybe even Australia or whatever, and then you bump into them after 3 or 4 years and they've lost their accent and they've got that wee twang, whatever they are. It's so funny when you really, really know what accent they should be talking in.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, no chance of you losing your accent, Darren. You didn't have a long enough stay at the clubs to actually, get an accent in most of these places. But to be perfectly honest with you, I'll tell you one thing, Darren. We're talking about, the reason why I'm talking about Stephen Glass and this and picking up on that point that was made there is I think they need to change their attitude. I think now, with the number 2 coming in, which is Scott Brown, I think that will be not too far behind. I think Scott Brown is, it's a coup for me if, when Aberdeen announced that, because he is going to be loved by the Aberdeen fans who despised him for long and weary. But they'll know all about it when they get his attitude up there, because he's a winner.
God almighty, Peter, 100%. And I think that's a negative attitude right away. It's an easy appointment. Listen, the chairman's bought the club wanting to succeed. So he's not just all of a sudden saying, I'll just get Stephen. He manages one of the teams in Atlanta and all that. I'll just get him over. They've obviously looked at everything and thought, right, Stephen's the best one. He's going to bring a born winner with. That's an attraction for Aberdeen that they're getting. If they're going to get Scott Brown, it amazes me that Celtic are going to let him go. Absolutely amazes me. But if they're going to get him, that's a huge attraction for a player who is a born winner, and he will go up there and he will demand out the Aberdeen players like they've never had this before. Because at Celtic, he's had 14 years of having to win every single game. And that probably means in training as well. So that's what Scott Brown will be bringing. Don't worry about people saying, he's 35 now, his legs have maybe gone. You saw on Sunday, Peter, I thought he played exceptionally well. He's still got life in him. There's no doubt about that. But what he will bring to Aberdeen and the players is drive and desire.
Yeah, here's what Bruni's offered over his career.
Stephen Glass is set to be the next Aberdeen manager, and he wants to bring Scott Brown to Pittodrie in a playing capacity but also as his assistant. The pair were teammates at Hibernian, where Brown had been since the age of 13, breaking into the first team in 2002. Brown made 135 appearances for Hibs and won a League Cup before joining Celtic in 2007 for £4.4 million, the largest transfer fee exchange between 2 Scottish clubs. He became a key player for the Hoops, winning the league at the first time of asking, and starred for the national team, where he eventually became captain and won 55 caps. He's also been skipper at club level since 2010, leading the Glasgow side to 9 consecutive league titles, with 6 Scottish Cups and 6 League Cups along the way, taking his trophy haul at Parkhead to 22. The 35-year-old has been named in the Team of the Year on 6 occasions, and despite constant questions over his age, he was awarded with the Player of the Season trophy for the second time in 2018. After 612 appearances and 46 goals for the Parkhead side, the most iconic figure of Scottish football for the past decade looks set to take the next step in his career, but at Aberdeen, not Celtic.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that's one of that, not many of that 9-in-a-row side will be left, I think, by the time you get to the summer, Roughie. I think there will be a major clear out. I think Griffiths will not be too far behind, and where he ends up, God only knows. But I just think Brown's appointment is one of those appointments where he will lift every player that Stephen Glass has on his radar to sign for Aberdeen.
Yeah, and I think we all know what he'll bring if he goes there, but it'll be interesting to see when this is going to be announced. You know, I think it was just Glass that was mentioned today. You know, I'm sure obviously everybody will be working overtime to get a view of what Scott Brown's talking about this and what his future holds. So I think we need to hold our breath before this whole thing happens. I know it's Glass's idea to bring him along and their mates and all that. But I'm sure Scott Brown will have lots of offers if he decides to leave Celtic. So, I mean, I know you're sounding if this is done and dusted. I don't think it's done and dusted at all. I think once he makes his mind up, there'll be other people who will want to try and attract him.
Yeah, well, I have had a chat with him in the last hour, so I think he's definitely going. I mean, he's definitely on his way, Tam. It's as simple as that. I think he's probably looked at it and thought to himself, "I've done all I can. I've served my time. I've given Celtic everything." I mean, in my mind, apart from anything else, there are people who despise him for reasons which we don't want to get into because it's just a lot of nonsense. But as a player, he's absolutely given his all for Celtic. And you only have to look at the weekend to understand, apart from his tragedies that he's gone through in lifetime, you only have to look at the weekend to see how much of a class act he is as a person with Glenn Kamara.
Yeah, well, 3 points I was wanting to make there, Peter. First up, I would like to go on record. First time I've been on the show since the Old Firm game on Sunday, and congratulate Scott Brown on the way he went and embraced Glenn Kamara. I thought it was excellent. That's one of those images, the photograph of that moment with them with their arm around each other is one of those that will hopefully last. I'd put it up there with the image of Ali McCoist and Walter Smith carrying Tommy Burns' coffin at his funeral. Second point I would like to make is that I think Aberdeen, in terms of Scott Brown, the player, have won a watch, because the only doubt, as far as I was aware, even for the guys who are watching Scott Brown week in, week out, the only doubt over what he can do on the park was perhaps at European level. And maybe even his biggest fans would have said, you know what, he hasn't quite get the hold over a game when Celtic go into Europe as he does have in the top flight in Scotland. So Aberdeen can make the most of that. They are still getting one of the top players in the Scottish Premiership. And the third point I would make, Peter, when you're saying about the reaction perhaps from some of the Aberdeen fans, you know, I've been there, you know, seen it, done it, bought the T-shirt, and the name I'll chuck in to the mix, and that argument is the guy that I know we're going to be paying tribute to later on the anniversary of his death, is Davie Cooper. Before Davie Cooper came to Motherwell, the relationship between Davie Cooper and the Motherwell fans was awful. The Motherwell fans absolutely slaughtered him anytime he came to Fir Park. Davie loved giving it back as well. You know, setting up a goal for Rangers, then doing the wee run up the touchline with his back to the fans in the terracing and giving them the fingers and all that. It was brilliant. It turned it into a work of art. There was never a referee or a linesman saw it. It was beautiful, right? But then, after all that, Peter, joy of joys, you know, the summer of 1989, Motherwell signed Davie Cooper for 50 grand. He makes his debut in a League Cup tie down at Rugby Park. And as he runs out of the tunnel, I can still see it. He gives the Motherwell fans one of them. And the Motherwell fans are, joyous. We could not believe we had a player like him at our club. And the rest, as they say, is history. And I forecast it will be exactly the same, the relationship between Scott Brown and the Aberdeen fans.
Yeah, I mean, all it takes is Darren knows, because Darren was the ultimate, I think, of... There are a clutch of players who I think are the ultimate player that you love to hate when they're playing against your team, but suddenly you sign for them and they think, wow, you know, they see what kind of effort you put in. I mean, I'm paying you the highest compliment, Darren, because, boy, there was a few teams and a few sets of fans that absolutely despised you until you signed for them.
Peter, it's true, and it's hard to speak about myself and put myself in this bracket. But fans hate real winners, Peter, that don't care about the opposition, don't care about anybody else. I'm on that pitch to win the game for my team, and you do it every way you can. And I don't mean a dirty way or that, but you do it as well as you can for your team. And that's why people hate Scott Brown. Scott Brown will do anything. He goes into tackles, he hits people. Now, if he's doing that for Aberdeen, they will absolutely love him. And what I can say is, now look at the relationship that he has with Lewis Ferguson when they were fighting each other. And Lewis is a young kid and Bruni's an experienced player now. And he wound him up and Lewis couldn't take it. Lewis is going to learn from Scott Brown, and so is McCrory, playing in the middle of the park. They can only become better players now for me. But as I said, fans love winners and people like Scott Brown. And you've got another one on the show, Peter, and Steven Naismith, who doesn't care about anybody else on that pitch apart from his own teammates. And Steven Naismith wasn't liked as well. So I think they'll love him. I think the players will love him. And I think all the young kids will learn loads from him.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably, and knowing Bruni, Roughie, the first Aberdeen game when they're running out of the tunnel, Bruni will probably tackle a few of them just to get them on edge anyway. He'll just put the first tackle into his own teammates. You know, I can hear the John Gagan gag as we speak. You know? Bruni scalps Shay Logan, and they're both playing for Aberdeen.
Yeah, I think you just have to. I think you just have to look at that stare he's got as he's standing in the tunnel, waiting in the game taking part, whether it's at club level or international level. He's just got that stare that would frighten anybody, and it would frighten, as you say, frighten your own players, and that would make them play a lot better. So, yeah, I think if he goes up there, you know, he'll have a lot to offer Aberdeen.
I just hope Aberdeen, Tam, sign the right calibre of player. I mean, players that are going to actually go and entertain. I think, you know, the cautious approach, you know, started to scunner them.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, Peter, you know, fans of just about every club out with Rangers and Celtic, I think will always have a kind of a soft spot for Aberdeen, hoping that they go out and win games, because they're kind of the club that we're all looking to break up the duopoly of Celtic and Rangers in Scottish football. Very fact, it's 36 years since anybody else has won the top title, and 3.6 seconds since Roughie has coughed, sneezed or farted while I'm trying to talk. but that was almost as if that was deliberate there. That was. But so I always look at Aberdeen saying, come on, is it going to be this year? Because by and large, they're surely about the only team in that big club for that big city that's got a chance of freshening up Scottish football. So bring it on. And one other quick point about Scott Brown, for him that's got any doubts. I bet you there were the same doubts a couple of decades ago, Peter, maybe a bit longer, when Roy Aitken went up to Aberdeen. And that didn't turn out too bad a move. He was more than a decent player for Aberdeen. So maybe there's a wee parallel there. But I think if I was an Aberdeen fan, I think I'd be quite excited.
Yeah, it's a good point you make. Andy won them a League Cup as well, Tam. Darren?
Peter, when you think about it, and like to be fair to Derek, and you're talking about signing entertaining players, I know what it was like when we were at Dundee United, and you lose Armstrongs, Mackay, Stevens, Shifties, Golds, Robertsons. Derek, they had great wide players. They had Mackay, Stephen, they had Johnny Hayes, they had McGinn. That was their pace in the team, and they were a real threat then. And when you lose that, Peter, and McGinn's not been the same player since he's gone back, and probably Johnny Hayes, even though I still think Johnny Hayes should have been at Celtic this year, he's probably not been the same player. So when you lose that out your team, Peter, it's sometimes very hard to replace.
Yeah, it's a fair point you make. Listen, I think over the piece, I think possibly at the tail end, the Aberdeen fans just became scunnered with Derek. They wanted a change, and that was it. And I thought Derek McInnes and the backroom team should have got out. Tony Docherty, they should have got out a couple of years ago. They had reached that ceiling point. I had a chat with them, the two guys at the PFA night, and I just thought, you've done all you can. You're not going to win any other plaudits with the side that you have and the money and the budget you have available, especially with Rangers coming back stronger. Tam did mention there, and I think it's only right and proper we mention him, Roughie. He was one of your teammates in Scotland. It's hard to believe. 26 years ago this very day, sadly, we lost Davie Cooper. He was a wonderful player. In a strange sort of way, I think all four of us, maybe, I don't know about Darren, but I'm almost certain I've got a connection and a story with him as well, Roughie. And you certainly have, because you played alongside the genius.
Yeah, and even playing against him, anytime I went to Ibrox and I got the team lines and I saw his name on the team sheet, it was put a fear of death into me, because I knew he was capable of doing things that other people couldn't. And he would do it, on numerous occasions outside of the foot, whatever. I played in the tribute game over at Pollocks Park when we played the Davie Cooper game against Rod Stewart's team. And it was a very emotional night for everybody, a lot of ex-Rangers boys there as well. And I think everybody would just remember the funeral. They remember it. It was just unbelievable. There were just rows and rows of people. I think Tam would tell me exactly. It went for miles, the people who'd come out to see the funeral taking place. It was absolutely amazing. So it just shows you how well liked he was. As I said, my favourite Davie Cooper story is he was a tennis player as well, and we went down to play England, and we stayed in this hotel, and Wimbledon was on at the time, and I told him that Eli Nastase was staying in the hotel, and he wanted to have a hit with him in the foyer, and he went, "Oh, fantastic!" But the rest of us were just going out for a walk, and my lasting memory of Davie was in the hall of the hotel with his tennis racket hitting the ball against the wall, waiting on Eli Nastase coming, who obviously wasn't anywhere to be seen. So it was a good night that night as we all left him in the foyer. But no, a sensational player, an absolutely sensational player, and a great guy to be about.
Mental, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, listen, fabulous player. My favourite goal that he scored always, Tam will, I know he scored some great goals for Motherwell, but for Rangers is the Dryborough Cup final, because Sandy Jardine worked with me in Edinburgh as my co-commentator for Radio 4th. And he said to me, Peter, he said, I hate that day, he says, because I ran the length of the pitch 40 yards and hit a screamer into the roof of the net. He says, and I thought everybody was going to be talking to me at the end of the game. He says, and then Coop got the ball, stuck it up over 3 Celtic players' heads, put it on his chest, side-footed it into the back of the net, put his hand up in the air as if it was the norm, and just walked away scoring one of the great cup final goals of all time.
Yeah, it was a cracker. We've all seen that goal in the Dryborough Cup final. The only thing is, it remains a great pity, Peter, that it was apparently filmed by one of the old cameras for Football First on STV. It was as if the YTS person that day did a shot of the camera for the first time. You'd love to see that. Can you imagine seeing that now in HD quality, glorious Technica? A wee bit, if you like. What's the one I was thinking of today? Jim Baxter playing Keepy Uppy at Wembley. That image is also very, very grainy as well. But maybe that gives it its wee bit of magic. But an absolutely brilliant goal. And, he transformed Motherwell as a club. There's no doubt about that. And to think we got him for 50 grand, which, everybody believes Davie got as a wee thank you for Rangers the minute Motherwell paid the money. Probably spent half it at Hamilton Races, the other half it in the Santa Lucia restaurant in Hamilton, his favourite place to go for a bite to eat, where they had wee bits and pieces of Davie up in the wall, a club tie, etc. He was very highly thought of in there. But yeah, warm memories. And if you like, the nice thing about the anniversary of the guy's tragic passing, Peter, is that the minute it comes round in this day and age, you only need to go into social media, and whether it's Clydebank, Rangers, Motherwell, Scotland fans, the amount of clips that they can put up of the guy and his absolute pomp, they're just a joy to watch. I've had great fun with that this morning with a wee tear in the eye.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, he played for Scotland with distinction as well, in Scotland in action against Austria. And of course, he did score the penalty on that tragic night when we lost the late, great Jock Stein as well in that game against Wales. But it's Scotland against Austria. And I'm just wondering if there are players that Steve, he's had a while off, but Steve Clarke's going to pick an 11 roughie. That's going to come up Austria, which I think Austria are now going to have near enough a full strength side. I think the Bundesliga players are going to be released there okay. So they're going to have a test Scotland. What team would you like to see them pick? Have you got players that you think should definitely be playing, Roughie?
I don't think he'll sway away from the players, the back four, the midfield, who were so successful in getting us to the Euros. Obviously, up front's always been a problem. The new boy will come in. I would like to. I'd like to. I'd wonder if he could maybe find room for the two of them up front. You know, I know that this day and age it's all about midfield and playing five, three at the back and five.
Who? Dykes and Adams.
I'd like. So Adams has got to play.
Yeah.
We've got to see what he's like, and if we can get Lyndon Dykes up there beside him, I think it gives us a wee bit of an advantage, you know, that all the pressure's not on him. But again, we go back to who is the three at the back, because I think he will now have to fold and say McTominay is a midfield player, not a defensive player. I think McTominay's got to be in the middle of that five. I think that's where his strength is. So somebody might come into the back three that we're not maybe expecting, but I don't think it'll vary much from the 11 that he's been picking.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Henry has come into the overall squad. I'll get Darren's thoughts on it in a minute, but the on loan Ostend centre half certainly feels as if, looking at his performances for Ostend, he feels confident he can do a job.
Yeah, I mean, I feel I've developed in these last 6 months or so in Belgium. I feel that I've got a better player, a better person on and off the pitch. So I think the most important thing for me is that I'm coming into this squad with games under my belt, with confidence. And maybe last time I didn't have those run of games coming into a squad as such. So yeah, I mean, I'm ready to go, fully fit.
Well, yeah, you can tell right away the way he delivers that, Darren. He's got a bit about him again, because when I spoke to him when he was at Celtic, there was a real uncertainty about the boy. He was just trying, so hard to establish himself, but it just didn't work out.
Yes, Jack was a young kid when we were at Dun United, Peter. And I actually met him on holiday one time in Portugal, and he's a nice boy. He's a confident boy. And he's done well over there, but I don't think he'll play. I think it'll be my personal views. It'll be the back three again. I think it'll be Tierney, McKenna, Gallagher, O'Donnell, McGinn, McTominay, McGregor, Robertson, and I think Christie will play off Adams. I think that's the way he'll go. I don't think he'll go two up. It would be nice to have the option maybe later on and trying Dykes and Che Adams up front, Peter. It would be good, but I think that's my team. I think that's what he'll go with.
Yeah, I don't think you're too far away. I thought maybe just to try and ruffle them up for an hour, Tam, he might go with Dykes and Adams. I certainly would love to see him do that. That would be very positive, Tam.
Yeah, it would, but as I said to you last week, Peter, let Stevie Clarke go on with it. Whatever team he puts out for these upcoming games, he's clearly trying to get his team as well for the European finals in the summer. And by and large, I think I'm fairly happy with the squad. Roughie's right, this Che Adams guy, you obviously want to look at the boy to see exactly what he's got, what he can offer us. And by and large, I'm kind of happy with the squad. I just hope I don't think we ever would. We're not in the position, even though we're now qualifying for tournaments again, to ever take any games easy. But the minute that Austria squad, I liked your update there, Peter. I hadn't heard that myself, that the Bundesliga guys should be okay. Now, the minute you see one of the guys in the Austria squad in the brackets after his name with Bayern Munich mentioned, then you know they're named mugs. the boys that are in this team. And joy of joys, Peter, even though I know the fixture that you absolutely hate now because you're bored senseless by it, Scotland playing Israel, what we've got that you might know have gathered is a crowd for that one on Sunday at the Bloomfield Park, the stadium in Tel Aviv. I think they're allowed 5,000 fans in. So this actually is one to look forward to suddenly, to forget the sound effects that are put in by the TV companies. Here we are going to have an actual crowd, albeit just 5,000, but it's going to be wonderful, unmissable.
Yeah, well, to be perfectly honest with you, and I know, Tam, I know you agree with me, Tam, but Roughie, the football has suffered. I mean, if ever there was a full year to realise that you need fans, I think some players have treated it like a training ground game, not getting the fans on their case, saying, by the way, stop passing the ball back. I mean, it's almost as if they get away with it. They can play the ball back, play it sideways. Some of the football I've watched this past year has been turgid. I mean, absolutely rank rotten, because players are in that comfort zone of playing the ball back. I mean, the amount of right backs I've seen play the ball back the way and just bore the back end off you, Roughie, is unbelievable.
Yeah, you've been watching Cove Rangers recently, aye?
Hey, there you go.
I mean, no. If you can build up to the back and you've got the confidence in your players, why not? But you're right. It bores the backside out of you, that you're wanting the ball up the park, you're wanting the ball in the 18-yard box, you're wanting a bit of action. For me, it is dead. It's just the players, I agree with you, the players are just going through the motion. They're just, I think when you've got a crowd in there, no matter what the crowd is, it lifts you and it makes you try a lot harder, and I think we miss it. Even bad games can be made to look good because the crowd are there making a noise, but the sooner it comes back, the better, because it's just sitting there watching it. It's just horrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
One strange positive that I can see where there've been no crowd there, Peter. I wonder if any of you guys have noticed this, but less disciplinary issues for the players, particularly the guys who scored the goals. Because let me ask you this, with no crowds inside the grounds, when is the last time that you saw a player scoring a goal and then removing his shirt to celebrate? When there's been no fans there, that simply hasn't happened. And a lot of them, of course, the minute they do that, when they're not meant to, they have had bookings, they have picked up points towards suspensions, they maybe even have picked up then club fines. But it's one of these strange, quirky things. I can't remember the last time I saw a player celebrating a goal by ripping off his jersey. And you used to see it 5, 6, 7 times a week back in the crowd days.
Yeah, absolutely.
You missed. That's what you missed. That's the joy. That's the joy you missed. Scoring a goal and ripping just because you're running to your fans. That's what's missed. So you can say it's discipline and you're not allowed to do it, but that's just your head goes. Your head goes when you go score a goal. And I was going to say, Peter, that I was at St Johnstone, Ross County on Saturday, and just as I was going into the game, Roy McGregor pulled up. And so I was standing talking to him for about 5 or 10 minutes, and he was talking about how kind of bad it's been. And he says, Darren, he says, the difference we had, I think they had a couple of games that they were allowed 300 in. He says, and you wouldn't believe the difference with 300 people in the stadium. He said, obviously ours isn't the biggest stadium. He says, but just having 300 people in made such the game was more intense just because of the 300 fans.
Yeah, absolutely, because you can hear somebody giving you absolute pelters. Of course, that's the joy of it all. Of course, we don't mind the banter. We don't mind people getting pelters. There are classic villains in a game. Sadly, the game has strayed into murky waters, and we are tarnished by fans with racist abuse, players getting involved in it as well. We've been really mired in that over the last couple of weeks. It certainly hasn't done us any favours. And I don't think over the course of this year, even with a sustained campaign, we're going to eradicate it, get rid of it. How do we stamp it out? Well, Marvin Bartley's been talking about it, the Livingston captain. He says, there should be a real hefty ban for players who are guilty of racism, possibly a year.
When it starts to hit clubs in the pockets and players in the pockets, then things will begin to change. If you're found guilty of racially abusing a fellow player on the pitch, it should be a 1-year ban minimum. Because then when you can't feed your family, when you can't live the lifestyle that you are currently living, when you're not bringing in the same sort of money you've been bringing in prior, you'll think about it. At this moment in time, what's a £2,000 fine or £5,000 fine, and you'll be playing again in 4 or 5 weeks when the 5 games have elapsed.
That's a good point, Roughie. I mean, a full year ban, it would send a really strong message out. I can't see it because I can see some kind of lawyer legally challenging your right to work.
Yeah, and we all know that it's in the rule book that if there's any player with any misdemeanour, the most you can fine them is 2 weeks' wages. So, that would all have to change. I suppose the union would have something to say about it as well. One of their member players getting banned for this. But we have to do something. It has to be a change of the rule or something put in place where the players exactly know this is what's going to happen. It was good to see there that I think a supporter's been caught at the weekend and punished and lost his job with the company he works for. Now, that's the kind of signal we need to send out to supporters. Surely they've got to sit up and take notice of that. I'm going to lose my job here. So the same with the players as well. I think, as you're right, the rules would have to be changed dramatically for them to come into place. But certainly I know where he's coming from. I think you have to finding players' wages now is nothing with some of the wages that some of them are getting. So it really has to be readdressed.
Yeah, Tam, I think one of the people, abusing Alfredo Morelos, I think it might have been as young as a 17-year-old. Now, I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, did they not? Do you know the one thing that I think is detached from it all, Tam? I don't think they realise that people are part of families. Alfredo Morelos is a human being. He hurts just like the rest of us. It's really painful to get to a situation where you have to deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, but, young guys and social media, it's never a great combination, Peter, and that's basically what happened there. It just sickens me. I mean, for the night of the actual incident, I mean, I thought UEFA, it wouldn't even have taken their top lawyer to throw the book at the Slavia Prague player. The minute he came out and claimed that he'd actually only said, "You're an effing guy," absolutely ridiculous, quite preposterous, for him to claim that that's what he actually said. They should have just leathered him there and then and banned him for the game and, put down a marker so that anybody else that was ever going to get up to this sort of nonsense would know exactly what lies in wait. And you know what? I was quite proud, Peter, in my own club at the weekend of Motherwell, who stood for Glenn Kamara. They didn't do the taking the knee gesture, and obviously there's been a lot of clubs doing it since. I think the taking the knee thing is a thing of the past. We can only hope now, of course, because that didn't have the desired effect, we can only hope that if the players are now standing with their fellow players, particularly guys who have been abused and subjected to this nonsense, we can only hope that does have an effect. But I totally agree with Marvin Bartley there that the guilty parties have got to be hammered. That is the only way to send out the proper message, or else this will just continue on and on and on.
Yeah, and Peter Shaw on our Facebook, I think, echoes the sentiments of everyone. We've been mentioning this ad nauseum over the last few months, longer than that possibly, that if you're on social media, proof of ID when you set up your account. I'd have no problem with giving your driving license, your passport, attributing it to your account, and then you really have the consequences of anything that goes on your social media. Of course, the SFA have now hired Marvin Bartley and Leanne Ross on the EDAB board to try and make sure that, of course, they talk, discuss, communicate, educate, and I think Bartley himself is well happy to be on that board.
In terms of obviously, what's going on now within the game, I think this is a huge step. If I'm totally honest, you see what's going on in other parts of Europe. I think the SFA are ahead of these other places, and now they've put this in place. As I said earlier on, I think they're kind of going to be the trendsetters, and whatever FA should be aspiring to try and do.
Yeah, absolutely. So all positive action is indeed welcome. And the good thing is Marvin Bartley speaks so eloquently and puts his point across well about this. And, we need more people like Marvin out there just educating people on this very thorny issue. Now, another player that I want to mention, Roughie, because we're all of a certain vintage here. And if you were on any kind of social media today, just put in the name Frank Worthington, you would see one of the all-time great goals. He leaves Terry Butcher for dead when he keeps the ball up in the air and then flicks it up over his head and then volleys it in past, I think it was Paul Cooper, in the Ipswich Town goal. Sadly, at 72 years of age, Frank Worthington passed away today, Roughie, which is really sad because he epitomises the word maverick, if ever you think about a player being a maverick.
Yeah, I had the great privilege at the end of our careers. There was a competition over in Mauritius for, I think it was over 40s or something like that, and he represented his region. I was over there with a Scottish team, and the ability that he had is unbelievable. It's very hard to describe, Peter, when you see people like that. And I don't mean during the game, I just mean with the ball, just messing about. And the kids in Mauritius thought he was absolutely fantastic. They just thought the tricks he could do with the ball were absolutely unbelievable. And I think he comes into the category of Matt Letizia. They had so much ability that they should have got more caps for their country, but because they're that maverick player, as you call them, they just never got as many games. But the ability that he had was unbelievable. I would rank him up there with Davie Cooper. What he could do with a ball, what Davie Cooper could do was just frightening to watch.
Yeah, Huddersfield, Leicester, Bolton and England should have got more caps. You're right, Roughie. The other thing about Frank Worthington, Tam, apart from the flicks and the tricks and everything, could he play? And I think, if my memory serves me correct, I think he was denied his big move to Liverpool on an injury, an old injury or something that was spotted in the medical, or he really would have had the ultimate stage for his talent.
Yeah, I've seen pictures doing the rounds today with him, Peter, sitting there at the desk at Liverpool as if he's ready to sign the contract. And then it all just went wrong. But yeah, you're right, the clips that were doing the rounds on social media today, the goal for Bolton against Ipswich, I stuck that up on my Instagram this morning and it went wild. And it was, I think, Peter, the second great goal that I remember as a kid, because I was 10 when Frank Worthington scored that. I remember it being shown on Match of the Day and thinking, wow, never seen anything like that before. First great goal that I remember would have been Archie Gemmel's the year before, of course, at Argentina. But the highlight, two of the great highlights that have since emerged in terms of Frank Worthington, I love being reminded the very fact he was a maverick on and off the pitch, of course, Peter. That his autobiography, of course, was famously called One Hump or Two. And just to try and take the sting out the title, One Hump or Two, the audacity, the cheek for on the front cover, he's there with the wee teacup and saucer, as if that's all he was alluding to. But then what I loved as well, Peter, and I dug this out for you in the show because I thought it was magnificent. One of my mates, I've still got the one that Roughie did on my phone, the old classic Q&A with Shoot magazine. And as I say, I've got Roughie's on my phone. No harm to Roughie, but his is absolutely tame by comparison, because Frank Worthington's in the shoot was brilliant. Now, you don't need to be panicking here, Peter. They're all safe. They're just very, very funny. Here are the seven highlights, the great questions and answers. He was asked previous clubs, and he said the Playboy, Tramps and Sandpiper, right? He's married, and he says used to be. Favourite other team, he put down Bolton Markets half holiday second 11, which you can almost imagine him turning out for. Most difficult opponent, the Taxman. Brilliant answer. Biggest disappointment, not getting the lead part in the TV series The Incredible Hulk. Miscellaneous likes, he just said bird watching. And on a similar note, the final question, it was always a classic at the end. Which person in the world would you most like to meet? And he just put, get the word into this, Elvis Presley's widow, Priscilla.
Roughie, you know, there is a man who was honest, and there is a man who actually came up with an autobiography with a, as Tam says, a fantastic title.
I mean, I lost a lot as a memory. He actually thought he was Elvis Presley. He was one of these guys that just absolutely loved him, and he tried to look like him and dress like him and everything, you know, the hair all greased back and everything. He was quite an entertainer.
Yeah, I was listening. He was a great player, great to watch. Great. There's not too many like him. Listen, Scottish Cup fixtures: Partick against Cowdenbeath. It's the big one, Roughie. It's the big one. Brora Rangers versus Hearts. Nairn against Montrose. Formerton against Annan. Also Morton against Dunfermline. There's Arbroath against Falkirk. It should be a cracker. And the other fixtures: Dumbarton, Huntly, Keith against Clyde, Peterhead, Stenhousemuir, Elgin City against Ayr United, Stirling against Wraith Rovers, and Bucky Thistle against Cali Thistle. Roughie, are you going to the game tonight to watch that game against Cowdenbeath?
Yes, I'll be there. Usual COVID rules: appear quarter an hour before the game and leave after the game. There will be shocks tonight, as we all look for, and let's hope one of them isn't us. But I think some of the Highland League teams have got a lot to prove, so we'll have to wait till tomorrow to see where these shocks are.
Yeah, well, if you were picking a shock out of that, Darren, where would it be? I'm looking and I'm thinking to myself, where is the shock in that collection of games? And could Morton turn over Dunfermline?
Well, but listen, I think that's a good game, because obviously Dunfermline are doing well. Morton are at home. I think the other one's interesting is Arbroath have got a great result on Saturday against Hearts, and then they come up against Falkirk, who are top of the league and all that. So I think that those two games are interesting, Peter, and it's not going to be a shock if Arbroath win or Falkirk win. But I think there'll be good games.
Yeah, Ian Miller says Thistle getting beat is never a shock. So there you are. He's laid it out there. As far as who do you think is going to win the cup? I mean, can anybody? Here's a line. Can anybody stop Rangers? Tam?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Cup's a totally different tournament from the long slog, particularly this year when fans, it's been a bit of a slog in the top flight, the league campaign. But yeah, I'm looking at those fixtures tonight, Peter, and I must say, okay, it could end up Hearts could maybe run out 5-0 winners, but when you talk about the romance of the Scottish Cup, and if you are looking for a potential banana skin, then surely Brora Rangers against Hearts. I'm sure Robbie Nielsen will not be allowing these players to get into that one taking name lightly. And I've got a wee bit of a dug in the race, Peter, because Motherwell will play the winners of Formartine against Annan Athletic. So I'll be keeping an eye out for that one as well. But yeah, I made the point at the weekend, Peter, when Graham Alexander slaughtered the Motherwell players for that hellish 4-1 defeat at Rugby Park. I would dread to think that the Motherwell players are thinking, you know what, we're not going to go down the way. Everybody will be cutting each other's throats. We're kind of out of the mix. We'll be fine this season. I would dread to think that they've switched off, because a lot of folk have kind of forgotten about the Scottish Cup this season. And it could still, it could still be a big tournament for us. It could still be the thing that really puts a smile on the fans' faces. So, yeah, Scottish Cup is always huge, even without fans.
Yeah, you're not going down, Tam. I can't see you. I can't see you going down, can you? These are just,
no.
You've got enough of a cushion.
You know what, yeah, as I keep saying, no, Peter, and it's becoming a bit of a cliche of mine, this show, we always mention Hibs, and the fact that everybody said, they're too good to get down that year, but they were in free fall with Terry Butcher in the dugout, Hamilton putting them down with the very last kick of the ball in the penalty shootout. But yeah, I think you don't even need to be a mathematician to work out that with the way all the fixtures are going to work out at the bottom end, then I think the cushion that we've got should be enough. So it should now be all eyes on the Scottish Cup and trying to put a real dent in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Darren, have you got a shock on the cards? Is there anybody other than Rangers that you're tipping for the Cup?
Well, I mean, Peter, you've got Celtic have got 1 defeat in 64 Cup games, so they've got to be confident. But listen, Rangers have lost to St Mirren this year and Celtic have lost to Ross County. So everyone on their day, everyone wants a home draw. The Old Firm want a home draw, but if they get an away draw, you always know you've got a chance in the Cup. It's 90 minutes, could go extra time, obviously, but it's a one-off. Just give your all. You don't play. You can't play for a draw. Just go for a win. So listen, Peter, we know what the Cup can be like. Rangers and Celtic are obviously going to be the favourites, but we've seen this year, as I say, we've seen this year with St Mirren and the Ross County results that anything can happen.
Yeah,
Peter, what a story it would be at the end of this season if one of the guys holding the Scottish Cup aloft in May was Scott Brown.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be. And I'm glad you said that, Tam, because we conducted an online poll asking Celtic fans if they wanted Scott Brown to stay. 68% of them said yes, 32% said no. And one of my mates has just sent a photograph of here is how Scott Brown will look next season in an Aberdeen strip. And I have to say, Roughie, it looks rather unusual. It is one of those moments where I think the Aberdeen fans are going to be giving it Yahoo when he walks out in the first game. Yeah. You realise how good they are, and then you actually start to think, wait a minute, this is a good player we've signed.
Peter, now you think, imagine it was a Celtic Aberdeen final.
Well, you mentioned that, but Roughie,
are you all presuming then that he's going to leave Celtic before the end of the season?
No, I think he'll stay to the end of the season and then join up for the new season.
Tam, no, I'm talking about he would be playing for Celtic. He can't leave before the end of the season. I'm saying if he's playing for Celtic.
No, he's going to play for another year.
He's playing for Celtic
against Aberdeen.
I'm talking about next year, Roughie.
Playing for Celtic against Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup.
I thought that's what Tam was on about. Yeah.
Right. No, sorry, my mistake, Peter. I was thinking that. Yeah, I was thinking it as if Aberdeen were going to come in and swoop and take him just now, and Celtic were going to allow that as he was a great club servant. But I'll tell you what, I totally agree with Peter, your poll there, because I think he's a big loss to the Celtic fans. A couple of my pals who support Celtic totally agree with that. This is very much going to be a transitional period for Celtic, and I think having a stalwart there, even for next season, for that year when a new manager and a lot of new players, you'd have to imagine, are going to be bedded into the club. It might not have been such a bad thing if it's Scott Brown in there at the heart of it. So, yeah, big loss for Celtic, which only, I think, backs up the way we're going, mate, that it's a real coup for Aberdeen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And, some Aberdeen fans might not fancy him. That's perfectly within their rights. Although, to be perfectly honest in answering your question, Roughie, there's many a player who's actually been ready to go from one club to another and they've played against him. Charlie Nicholas had to score a penalty in, I think it was the 1998 Scottish Cup final against Celtic, and he put it into the roof of the net, and then rejoined Celtic the season after. I can't remember if it was 98. Was it 98?
No, wasn't it 1998? No,
it was 89. Sorry, it was 89. Yeah, I knew I had the numbers mixed round. 89, he put it into the roof of the net, and Aberdeen won the cup.
And Peter, another wee example of a player winning over fans. I've got an image of a certain striker. I think he was wearing black kind of lycra shorts under his white shorts, scoring past Pat Bonner at Celtic Park. And I believe his name was Maurice Johnston. And I think there'd been quite a few Rangers fans cheering him to the high heavens that night.
Yeah, absolutely. Mo Johnson, all those years ago, 1989 as well. It's one of those John F. Kennedy moments. You know exactly where you were when you heard the news. Anyway, on that note, Scott Brown next season, Aberdeen, Roughie. In answer to your question, yes, we do anticipate that to be the move for next season. And I can just tell you, just before we go, the SFA have launched an investigation into claims that Wraith veteran Ian Davison made discriminatory comments towards an Inverness player, a 37-year-old, has been, at this moment, I can just tell you, has been hit with a whopping 5-game ban after he received 2 red cards during last midweek's championship encounter, which Thistle won 1-0. So he was shown a straight red card for a 10th minute elbow on Thistle striker Nikolai Todorov, a challenge that angered several Thistle players, and subsequently a second red for grabbing a Cali player by the throat. So there you are. That's just come in. That's the last bit of news we will feed to you. Don't forget, if you go onto our Facebook page, there's a competition running. You still have a chance to win a Diego Maradona canvas, an iPad and an Xbox, all in one, the PLZ hat-trick competition. Just hit the send message, follow the instructions with your answer, submit your details, and we'll announce the winner before the end of the month of March. Lots more competitions on the way as well. Follow our page on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I hope you enjoy yourself. We'll continue the build-up to Scotland against Austria on tomorrow's programme as well. Thanks to Roughie, thanks to Tam Cowan, thanks to Darren Jackson, and from myself, Peter Martin, thanks to you for watching.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.